Hello again, my name's John. I'm a retired cook from the northeast of England here in the UK, and welcome to my latest video recipe. In this one I'll demonstrate how I make this delicious light moist lemon drizzle cake with a lemon curd and lemon whipped cream filling and topped off with a tangy frosting. And I'll also show you how we make our mouth-watering lemon curd. And here's the lists of ingredients you'll need to follow along. First, the lemon curd recipe, followed by the drizzle cake. You can always buy the lemon curd if you don't fancy having a go at making it yourself, but I assure you it's quite easy to make. Right, I'll start by finely zesting all 5 lemons. This is for both recipes. That's 3 lemons for the curd and 2 lemons for the cake. Once it's all done, I'll divide the zest into 3. That's 1 for the curd, 1 for the cake mix and 1 for the frosting. And once that's done, I'll juice the lemons. I'll need 150 grams, that's 150 mils, or just over 5 ounces for the curd, and the rest is for the cake. Now I'm using quite large lemons, and the total weight comes to 900 grams, which is 2 imperial pounds. So even if you can only get small ones, you know the exact weight you'll need. Right, the juice in the glass is for the cake, so I'll save that for a little later in the recipe. Okay, the first thing to make is the curd, but like I said earlier, if you're buying yours, just skip to the cake recipe at about 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the video. But you do get a much richer and better flavoured lemon curd by making your own. Plus you know there's no additives or food colourings at all in your very own homemade lemon curd. And as it's very easy to make, why not? The butter in the recipe is also homemade. There's a video on my channel how to make it. I'll leave a link in the description box below this video. Right, start by warming the butter on the lowest heat possible on your stove. You want the butter just to slowly melt and then turn off the heat once it's a liquid. Now add the 250 grams of caster sugar and combine it with the melted butter. And if you want to know how to make your own caster sugar, I'll leave a link in the description box below the video on my Victoria sponge cake recipe. Before adding the eggs, make sure it's not too hot or you'll end up with the eggs scrambled and the recipe ruined. In this case the temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, that's about 104 Fahrenheit, so it's okay to add the eggs one at a time as shown. And by the way, you'll only need a fraction of this batch of curd for this cake recipe, and the rest will keep in the fridge for a couple of weeks to use on whatever you like. Once the eggs are thoroughly mixed in, add one of the 3 portions of zest that was prepared earlier and mix that in too. And finally add the 150 grams, that's 150 mils or just over 5 ounces of the lemon juice that was prepared earlier too. Once everything is combined, light the stove and bring the mixture to a boil. Soon as it comes to a steady boil, turn off the gas and let it cool. If you're cooking on an electric hob, remove it from the plate altogether. Once it's cooled down, you can put it in a sterilised jar and it'll keep in the fridge for a couple of weeks. And that's all there is to making homemade lemon curd. Simple and delicious. And now for the star of the show, the lemon drizzle cake. Start the recipe by preheating your oven to 190 degrees Celsius, that's 375 Fahrenheit or gas mark 5. I'm setting mine at 170, allowing for the fan assist. And for this recipe you'll need to prepare 2 20cm or 8-inch sandwich cake tins, greased and the bottom lined with parchment or greaseproof paper. You can grease the tins with butter or lard. I'm using lard on this occasion, and for belt and braces I like to grease the top of the paper too. Okay, I'll start the recipe by adding the softened butter and the sugar to a bowl and using a spatula or a wooden spoon, cream the ingredients together until it becomes a smooth, silky paste. I'll be making this sponge by hand, but you can use a mixer to make this cake. It makes life a lot easier when your butter's soft, and also when it comes to adding the eggs, make sure they're at room temperature too. The next ingredient to add is the second of the 3 portions of zest I prepared earlier, followed by 1 teaspoon of my homemade orange and lemon extract. I'll leave a link in the description box below this video on how to make it, along with my vanilla extract recipe. If you haven't got any orange and lemon extract, which most people won't have, just use vanilla extract. But even that's not essential in this recipe, as the overall lemon flavour is quite strong. But if you've got it, use it. Now start adding the eggs. This has to be done one at a time as it prevents the batter becoming too grainy. Not getting too technical, it's to do with the butter being a fat and the eggs being mainly water. They don't mix very well. If you added all the eggs at the same time, this would result in the cake being on the heavy side. Also, by whisking in the eggs one at a time, this incorporates quite a bit of air into the batter, which makes the finished sponge a lot lighter. Time to sieve in the flour, salt and baking powder. I'll be using self-raising flour for my cake, but if you're using plain or all-purpose flour, you'll need to add an extra 2 teaspoons of baking powder, making a total of 4 teaspoons of baking powder altogether. Don't get confused with baking soda, mind, it has to be baking powder. Those hard white bits that are left are actually bits of baking powder. If you got one of those in your mouth when the cake's done, it would be a rather unpleasant taste. So it is important to sieve. Plus, sieving incorporates air into the mix too. And now it's time to be gentle with the batter. Carefully fold in the flour, baking powder and salt. I'm using a spatula. The last thing you want to do is to beat out the air that you've whisked into the mix. If you're using a machine, do this part with your mixer set on the lowest speed possible. Even if I'd used a machine up to this stage, I'd do this part by hand. Right, time to divide the batter into the 2 tins. The finished weight of the batter should be around 920 grams, that's 2 imperial pounds. I'll weigh 460 grams or 1 pound into the first tin, and that should be close enough. And there's really no need to weigh the second tin. But I'm curious to see if my calculations are right, so I'll weigh the second tin too. And that's just about spot on. Marvellous. All I need to do now is to level out the batter in the tins, and the best tool to use for this is the back of a metal dessert spoon, because there's less surface area for the batter to stick to. And that's them ready to go into the oven. Right, don't waste any time getting it into the preheated oven and set the timer for between 20 and 25 minutes. I always set mine to 23 minutes, then I'll test the cake with a wooden skewer or a toothpick. Whatever you do, don't open the oven door to take a peek before the 20-minute mark, because the sudden drop in temperature will cause the centre of the cake to collapse. Don't get me wrong, it won't be the end of the world. You could still use it, but it won't be as aesthetically pleasing. Okay, while I'm waiting for the sponge to cook, I'll prepare the whipped cream filling. In the bowl is 300 ml or grams of whipping cream, 2 teaspoons of icing or powdered sugar, and an optional teaspoon of vanilla extract. You don't have to use a machine to make this, you can use a hand whisk, it just takes a little longer. This stage of the recipe can be made well in advance. You can even prep this hours before and keep it in the fridge, so don't feel like you have to do this while the cake's in the oven. Whether cooking in your house kitchen or in a busy working kitchen, the art of good cooking is in the preparation. Getting these small jobs out of the way gives you more time to concentrate on the more challenging aspects of any recipe. Right, once your cream stiffens up like you see in the video, transfer it to a smaller bowl that'll fit in your fridge. I go into a lot more depth on my Victoria sponge video on how to whip cream if you want to have a look at that. There'll be a link in the description box below this video. Time to use some of that gorgeous lemon curd I made earlier. Add 2 or 3 dessert spoons to the cream, but rather than whisk it in, gently fold it, trying to create a ribbon effect throughout the cream. Now cover the bowl and refrigerate. Another good reason to prep this beforehand, as it's much easier to work with once it's been chilled. And as you may have noticed, the lemon curd is still a bit runny. That's because it was only made a couple of hours ago. But once it's been in the fridge overnight, it'll thicken up like jam, so you can spread it on toast or scones or lots of other stuff. And here's another couple of jobs you could prepare well in advance. This first one is the simple lemon drizzle frosting for the top of the cake. You can make it as runny or as thick as you like. I find that 4 to 6 heaped dessert spoons of icing or powdered sugar to 2 dessert spoons of lemon juice, plus the last of the grated lemon zest, and that has about the right drizzability for this recipe. Now that's a good word, isn't it? Drizzability. The last thing to prepare from the remaining juice is a little lemon syrup to moisten the sponge. All that is 3 tablespoons or 45 grams of granulated sugar added to the juice, and give that a good mix until the sugar has completely dissolved. And set that aside too. Right, the 23 minutes are up and it's time to see if the cake's done. I use a long wooden skewer to test mine. That way I don't have to take the cake out of the oven or put my hands into the hot oven by using a little toothpick. And the skewer is coming out clean, that means the cake is done. I'll put these tins on a wire rack for 10 minutes before turning them out. And I must say, the smells in my kitchen are fantastic. The smell of the lemon curd being cooked, now the sponge, absolutely wonderful. Right, both sponges have popped out the tins, no bother. They're still a little warm to put together, so I'll give them a further half hour to cool. And that'll also give the whipped lemon cream and the curd a chance to set up a bit more in the fridge. Okay, everything has cooled down enough to start assembling this cake. Place the base sponge on the surface that you intend to serve it on, and start with brushing on some of that lemon syrup I made earlier. Don't be too stingy with it, as this sponge will take a lot of this liquid. There should be enough in this jug to do both sponges. And this process will keep the cake nice and moist for the 4 to 5 days shelf life that it has in chilled conditions, but it won't last that long in this house. Right, the next layer is a couple of spoons of that lemon curd I made, but don't put this on too thick, because when the cream filling goes on, it'll only push the curd over the rim of the cake. Use the same amount as I do, about 2 tablespoons. Now it's time to apply some of that wonderful lemon whipped cream filling. You can put on as much or as little as you like. I prefer plenty, so I'll try to get the whole lot on. Once the cream's on and levelled off, drop a few dollops of that curd onto the top of the cream as shown in the video, but not too much. Now carefully place on the top sponge and gently press it into shape and make sure it's level. Once it is level, brush some of that lovely lemon syrup all over the top of it. Those lines on the top of the cake are from the wire rack, but the lemon drizzle will cover those up. Time to add the final layer, and as the name implies, just let it drizzle all over the top of the cake, but do it in a sort of random controlled manner, if that makes any sense to you. Try to get the drizzles as evenly spaced out as you can. I think it looks much better that way. And there it is, all finished. Out of all the cakes around the world, lemon cake has come out the most popular, and if you have a go at making this yourself, you'll know why. I'll get about 8 slices out of it, and what I would normally do now is to get it into the fridge for a couple of hours to let everything set up a bit before cutting into it. The drizzle on the top should set pretty firm and the cream filling won't be as soft. But for the sake of the video, I'll have to cut a slice and take a few snaps for the opening and closing images of the video. And in keeping with my other videos, I suppose I'll have to do a taste test. Oh, it's a hard life. Well, that's about all I can say for this one, except give it a try. And I'm certain that you, your family and your friends will be very glad you did. Unless, of course, you keep it all to yourself. And here we go. My taste buds are on the edge in anticipation. Right, I'm going in. And honestly, joking aside, this cake is absolutely fabulous. It has everything. And no doubts about it, it gets a thumbs up. Well, thank you again for watching. Please like, share, comment and subscribe by hitting the circle above. If you do subscribe, activate the bell icon next to the subscribe button on my channel page. And by doing that, you'll be automatically notified every time I upload a new video. And in the meantime, here's a few of my other videos you may want to watch. So, until the next time, be safe in the kitchen and bye for now.